Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Black History Month, and welcome to the raising of the Black Lives Matter flag. Last week, Hinesburg Selectboard unanimously voted yes on a resolution proposed by the Hinesburg Racial Equity group to raise the flag. This is the first step of many to dismantle systematic racism in Hinesburg and beyond. We do recognize that there is more work to be done, and we look forward to joining forces with the Select Board and the citizens of Hinesburg. The Racial Equity Group's mission statement is as follows. We are a committee of concerned citizens who recognize the negative impact of racism and white supremacy culture on the lives of Black, Indigenous, and people of color who live in Hinesburg. This group seeks to raise awareness, promote learning, advocate for anti-racist town policies, host events, and work with other Hinesburgians to make Hinesburg a welcoming, diverse, and safe community for all.
3 years ago, CVU raised the Black Lives Matter flag for the first time as a response to the powerful and passionate push coming from students in response to the everyday injustices that occur within our community. At the time, Racial Alliance Committee begged for visibility. I spent most of my lunch period sitting at a table to gather signatures for a petition to raise this very flag. To sit and defend the statement, Black Lives Matter, to my peers. It's not even saying that Black lives should be equal. It's only stating the most basic human rights, and I don't think that should be controversial, arguable, or politicized. People of color looked for support, and no one answered until it became trendier to care about racial justice. When someone I know goes to report an incident on race, they are automatically questioned. History keeps repeating itself, and people say that this will never happen again, but it does. This month is Black History Month, the shortest month of the year, but it is White History Year again and again. These are the problems. I'm sure that people in this community have been doing great work, especially by advocating for this flag, but this is not the end. I think that humility in addressing our shortcomings is essential to change. We cannot repair the damage that is already done, so to move forward as a more anti-racist community, I ask you to follow these steps. Recognize and acknowledge your privilege. Privilege is a special right, advantage, or immunity granted to a certain person or group. For me, some of my privileges include the fact that I'm economically privileged, and in terms of colorism, I have lighter skin. The fact that you have privilege does not make you inherently a bad person, but it makes it so that there are some hardships that you do not even have to think about. This means that you may not even recognize it at first, but as soon as you do, it is important to accept that and use that power to give your platform to those who do not have the same privilege as you do. 2, remember that small steps like this make a big difference. Every petition, every difficult conversation with an ignorant family member, every call to a legislator, every vote, every action counts. 3, keep your foot on the gas. Prove to the community of color that we can trust you when things go wrong, whether it is addressing someone's xenophobic comment against the Asian community about the coronavirus, or simply holding yourself accountable for past inaction. Your actions matter, and make a statement. Even if you feel like you do not have authority on an issue, it does not mean that you can ignore it. Silence is compliance, so let's be the future and keep speaking up.
I'd like to thank this diversity committee, including the CVU students, representatives, and all those in attendance and people remotely. I'm proud to represent Hinesburg Select Board and the town employees in this symbolic action. While this Black Lives Matter flag may in some slight way give small comfort to Black, Indigenous, and people of color, our BIPOC community, who live, work, or visit our town, I hope raising this symbol does much more. Systemic racism is an issue that requires actions not by BIPOC members of our society, but by those who have benefited from the status quo and have the responsibility to change this status quo. I hope when we look at this flag, we are reminded every day to face our responsibilities. Those responsibilities go beyond awareness of embedded racism. We must initiate discussions and take actions to break down long-held government and community systems that make it impossible to achieve a socially just society. Again, thank you for initiating this action and inviting our town to join in.
We would now like to welcome Sonnet and Sion Alfred Brathwaite, two Hinesburg Community School students, to raise the Black Lives Matter flag for us. And as you watch them raise the flag, please take a moment to think about this quote and what it means to you. Dr. Robin DiAngelo said, "Racism is a system, not an event."
Racism is prevalent in Hinesburg, and that's a reality we have to face. We live in a world, whether we realize it or not, where racism is embedded in everything we do. This can be hard to understand, but like many things, the longer we ignore it, the worse it becomes. With this flag, we have chosen to no longer ignore racial inequality. This flag serves as a reminder that we as a town have made a commitment to change. To do this, it's necessary to educate ourselves and our peers on race. If we don't truly understand where inequality started, it's impossible to dig up the root of the problem. We have to listen to BIPOC voices while understanding that racism is a white problem. We always have to take action when we see something that requires changing. These are only a few of many approaches that will be crucial to achieving racial justice. I want to remind you that this flag is completely performative and holds no substance if extensive adjustments to our community are not made. I understand that right now, all of this might feel like a huge hurdle, but I believe there's hope. I wouldn't be here if there wasn't. I've lived in Hinesburg my whole life, and for most of it, I felt alone in my encounters with racism. In the past, I felt like no one was listening, or maybe no one cared. Today, that sense of loneliness feels a little less intimidating. I really want to thank everyone who has made today so incredible. Over the next few months, the Hinesburg Racial Equity Group will be hosting all kinds of virtual events, from book groups to watch parties and possibly guest speakers, all focused on racial equity. If you're interested, check out our Instagram or Facebook at Hinesburg Racial Equity and keep an eye out for postings on Front Porch Forum. Before I go, I'd like to share a quote by Amanda Gorman, the young Black woman who spoke at the recent inauguration. I feel it's important to note in this fight for equality. There's always light. If only we're brave enough to see it. If only we're brave enough to be it. Thank you.